Program funding for the Organic Odyssey was provided by the California Certified Organic Farmers Foundation, as well as the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. Visit their web pages or social media for all their amazing content and guidance on everything organic. Support for the Organic Odyssey is provided in part by the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. For more information or to support the center, please visit organic.calpoly.edu. That's organic.calpoly.edu for the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. Support for the Organic Odyssey is provided in part by AgCom Central. Visit AgCom Central on twitch.tv or youtube.com for all content ag-related. That's AgCom Central on twitch.tv or youtube.com for AgCom Central.
Well, hello everybody. This is a new territory for Organic Odyssey. We're here in Santa Cruz County with Brian Coltrin. Brian is a long-time contact of the Organic Center. Brian has worked for CCOF for a number of years, but we are here today to talk about his organic dry farm tomato operation and just learn a little bit about that. So that's why we're not in the studio. We're out in the field. All right. So Brian,
yes,
thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to this piece of ground and the type of farming you're doing?
Sure. Well, welcome to Opal Creek Farm. This is a 6-acre organic farm. We're at Rancho del Oso. So, a portion of it is family land, the other portion is state parks. So it's a long time ag zone of this area. And I started leasing here a few years ago.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of years doing dry farm tomatoes and other crops on this field. We're looking at, or next to us here is 6 acres, 3 acres cover cropped, and another 3 acres behind that cover cropped of land that will have dry farm tomatoes on it for this season coming up.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and then I could tell you my history in agriculture.
Yeah.
So I've spent the last 15 years in organic agriculture. I did the Center for Agroecology program at UCSC.
Excellent.
And right when I left, I said, I got to get this into practice. I've got to do something with this. And so I rented with 2 business partners up in Pescadero and spent years farming there. And then said, wow, this is really tough, what else is there? And then took a job at CCOF and been working in organic, and now I'm working as an organic technical specialist. So I've got a full-time job, working in an office, supporting grantees, and then I'm running up here, turning on irrigation water, tilling the field, so yeah. I'm very busy.
Yeah, that's the reality of small-scale farming for so many people.
Yeah.
Is you have a full-time job and then you farm.
Well, in the past, right, the typical scenario, right, is the guy's out there farming, then the wife is a nurse or a teacher.
Right, yeah.
But then she's saying, hey, is there any other way we could spend this money? This sucks, Right? So now I've talked to other people, so we're both the farmer and the nurse and the teacher,
you're doing it all.
Because otherwise, right, the family budget doesn't balance, right, because you're trying to do something that's dependent on the cycles of nature.
Yeah.
And so some years you totally lose, some years you break even, some years you earn money. And so that's what's hard about farming.
So why don't we talk a little bit about dry farming? And because that's a really unique form of agriculture, at least for tomatoes. And it's something that has a pretty long history in Santa Cruz County. So can you educate our listeners and viewers a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I saw this land was up for rent a few years ago, and and this ranch itself has a really long history with dry farming. Opal Creek Farm, who's kind of the originators of dry farming in this area, they were growing here in 1969 or so, 71 or something. So they rented this field a really long time ago.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so for me, it was imagining, right, keeping that legacy going, keeping the story of dry farming going. Two Dog Farm, who's further in, and they actually have this field up on the hill here in front of the house. They've been doing it for 30 years, right? They were right alongside Molino Creek. And so long history of doing this really cool crop that only now is starting to get regional sales that people are recognizing.
Right.
So it just took 30 years.
Yeah, it takes 20, 30
to
years
build
to build
some
a market.
demand.
Yep.
But so then people are asking about this. You know, this my crop was selling wholesale, so it went up to Washington State. It went to the East Coast, and there was demand for the crop
Oh,
with
wow.
the word dry farm tomatoes from this region. So that's new and
All the way out on the East Coast.
well,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
From,
Yeah.
from what I hear.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what? How's the system work for dry farming, and how's it different than, say,
Yeah.
a more traditional tomato? And and just to be clear with the
Yeah.
audience, so
Yeah.
the kinds of tomatoes that Brian grows, these are headed towards a fresh market. They're not processing tomatoes.
Yes.
Of course, here in California, both organic and conventional, we have a massive processing tomato
Yeah.
industry. That's all largely mechanically dealt with.
Yeah.
These tomatoes are all lovingly picked by hand
Good
and
call.
with a lot of hand management. But how do they
Yeah.
differ? So I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
you
yeah.
can grow tomatoes, you can grow wet farm tomatoes,
Yes,
you can, or irrigated, right?
yes,
Or you can grow dry farm tomatoes.
Yes.
What makes them dry farm tomatoes?
Yeah, so the process of growing is the biggest difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And setting down irrigation or not. So out here, we're going to get the timing right. We're going to till the ground, so plow the field. I'll mow this cover crop, till the field at the right moisture.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll, in that process of disking the field, maybe even rototill it, I'll make a dust mulch, so I'm locking in that moisture.
Okay,
I
yeah.
broke the capillary action of the water, so it's locked in the soil. Then I'll trench really deep into that field I plowed, and then plant them down 10 inches or more. And so I'm planting to moisture. And then the true dry farm people, Two Dog Farm, who's right around the corner, will not water at all.
Right.
They won't even water them in because they planted to such good moisture
Right.
that, you know, as they're planting, it kind of got covered again, and that just grows right into that moisture. They have fields when we came in right at the front,
Right.
they couldn't water if they wanted to.
Right.
So they're true dry farmers. So I did that my first year. It was very stressful, and the timing was very hard. So hard for a guy who's got something else to do Monday through Friday. And so what I ended up doing was setting up irrigation on an oval hose and watering them in one time.
Right.
Then I found, okay, one irrigation, 1 inch of water, that's 20,000 gallons of water one time, pretty good compared to processing tomatoes, or even irrigated tomatoes on the coast
Right.
would take an acre foot, 2 acre feet of water, 3
Easily.
acre feet of water, so
Easily. Yeah.
350 or so 500,000 gallons of water, right?
Right.
To a million, yeah.
Right. Right.
For one crop per acre, yeah.
It's amazing. It's a lot of water. So what about this environment makes it so well suited to dry farming something like tomatoes?
Right, yeah. So this area is perfect for dry farming, and what we're talking about, this type of dry farming, so one irrigation or none, is not possible inland. You couldn't even do it if you wanted to, right? It's just too hot. The plants would be so stressed they would be roasted from the sun, and it would just get too hot. So this is, planted to moisture, maybe one irrigation crop, and when I get here every morning, it's foggy or it's cool in the morning. And it's actually hard in the summer to harvest because all the fruit is wet from dew from the fog.
Yeah.
So when we pick, we set it out in the sun just to dry it because you don't want to pack it wet into boxes.
Right.
So then in about 12 o'clock or noon, maybe 1 o'clock, the fog's breaking off, it gets hot, and then gets really warm throughout the rest of the day, but didn't stress the plants so much so that they need irrigation. Yeah.
And with dry farm tomatoes, I mean, so you mentioned that there's finally a recognized market for these, that they're, beyond just, it's a tomato, it's a dry farm tomato.
Yes.
What's special about it? I mean, what's the appeal that would, get behind that market beyond, the environmental benefit of obviously using less water?
Yeah, well, what I think we want to do out here is produce a really good tasting tomato. So produce something that has really good flavor. It's the right size, it's not huge, it's the perfect fruit. And when you grow without irrigation, the plants are just challenged in this way. The roots go down 8 feet looking for moisture. Wow. And so they're mining minerals too, which is kind of cool. Right. So maybe more nutritious, right? We'd have to look into that. I'm sure it's true, but we'd have to do some analysis.
Yeah, right.
What makes it something healthier is the longer it's in the ground, and some other stuff too. But then the plant is challenged in this way that, plant stress, it just builds up really good flavor. And then we're giving people a tomato like that they used to taste like, or we wish they all taste like.
Right.
It's a really good tomato.
Right. So a deeper, denser flavor, less watery, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes. It's just a denser flavor. Then if you dehydrate them, it's incredible.
Oh,
Because then
wow.
you concentrate what is there already. Yeah.
Are you doing that? Are you dehydrating some of them
Yeah,
and
doing
marketing
some-
them that way?
Yeah, I've just started it. I want to make a processed product, like a little medallion, dehydrate it,
Oh,
throw a little
lovely.
seasoning on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How would you market those, do you think?
Trying to figure it out. But,
Yeah.
just a little package, of dry farmed
Mhm.
snacks, I'm trying to get the right crunch. If it's too dehydrated,
Mhm.
it's kind of like crack your molar. But if it's not enough, then it's chewy. So it's like this weird
Yeah.
world in between.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of marketing your tomatoes,
Yeah.
do you sell, well, obviously it sounds like you've got a New York market now, which is not local. But, where did you start out marketing and how are you marketing them now?
So I'm selling this wholesale to local wholesale buyers. That I've searched around, have tried to figure out the best wholesale market. That's the juggle of all small farmers.
Yep.
Search for the best price and the best market.
Yeah.
And I'm still haven't quite figured that out.
Well,
But-
tell me when you do.
But what I figured was at harvest I have 200 boxes, 4,000 pounds. No farmers market is going to work for me
Right.
unless I went to 10 farmers or 5 farmers market on
Right,
that Saturday.
right.
So trying to figure out where this can go. I'm focusing on selling to schools this upcoming year. I've got the farm to school grant, so that was helpful and useful to divert and figure out a different market. Finding out how much they really want to buy is going to be the challenge because
Right.
the kids are going to be like, I've had enough tomatoes. Yeah.
If they taste good,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
they'll develop more of a
Yeah.
favor for them.
Well, so we sold the dry farmed sun gold tomatoes, the little cherry tomatoes. Those dry farmed are really good. They're already sweet when you irrigate them.
Yeah.
So if you grow them without irrigation, they're really good.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's a fun crop, and that's our other dry farm element, and that's what we're trying to figure out. What other crops make sense out here? So we dry farmed some squash, sold a few thousand pounds of that.
Nice.
2 types of tomatoes, and then we're looking at University of Oregon. They're running all these, different ideas, different crops, different varieties. Watermelon would be cool.
Yeah.
Concentrated flavor watermelon.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I know there are folks, I think in the valley, that have played around with dry farming melons.
Yeah,
I've seen them at farmers markets.
yeah.
When do the tomatoes come off? So what's your sort of harvest window?
Oh yeah. So let's see. Get the plants sometime, and I'm having someone start the transplants. I get all the transplants the end of March, beginning of April. Plant out in the beginning of April. It's 100 days later, type of crop, maybe 90 days, depending on the weather. Then August, I'll start getting the fruit coming off then, and then that's when we start scrambling, trying to find the best sales spot.
Right.
We don't have contracts. We have commitments to buy from wholesalers. So it's a juggle, and you don't know what's going to happen. And this year they might not want that they said.
Right.
And it's definitely a challenge selling it.
We definitely ran into that in our small farming adventure in a different state.
Yeah.
Which is, there's nothing like having a handshake agreement to grow a bunch of a crop, and then when it comes time to deliver,
It's never
Yeah.
never known exactly.
Yeah.
And so for us, we're just a tiny small farm, so that makes our entire year.
Right.
But this at a big wholesaler is, they're talking to 100 different people, so they still have a year. It's just it affects
Right.
you differently. And then what I think we were mentioning earlier is the price of commodity is so low. That is what we're finding
Right.
across the board. Even I saw it in some USDA write-up recently, and I think that might be some of the state grant ideas is keep people going, keep production going, so that we can, hopefully weather this low price of commodity till it
Right.
comes up a little, because all of our costs are really high,
Right.
but the price that we're getting is very low, and it's like, I don't know why it's not changing.
Well, and that's one of those interesting things about agriculture, and I think we've talked about this in other podcasts recently, is your input costs are facing inflation. So that inflation that everyone is talking about right now, and maybe when this podcast comes out, we'll still be talking about, hopefully not.
Yes.
It's hitting farms and farmers really hard, but
Yes.
the weird thing is on the sales side, we're just typically not seeing it. So you know the wholesale price is pretty much been flat.
For
And-
years. But then when you and I go to the store, it's quite expensive at the grocery
Right,
store.
so-
So there's some earnings in between that.
Yeah.
And all I would say is we want to distribute that, the
Right.
higher prices to the people producing the
Right.
food. Yes.
Yeah, and if you are, you know, growing with sustainable practices, so in your
Mm-hmm.
case, you're both certified organic and doing dry farming,
Mm-hmm.
there's a economic cost to all that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're, I would guess, I would hazard to guess that, you know, you lose a lot of predictability in
Oh,
terms
you're
of how much yield you get.
I thought you were going to say lower yield. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk about yield
Yeah.
on in wet farming, irrigated tomatoes
Yeah.
in the Central Valley. I was reading this before I came because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to compare yields. So 120,000 pounds, 60 tons per acre.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Huge quantities.
Yeah.
I was thinking coastal, probably lower, you know, maybe there's a fresh market, they're getting 50,000
Right.
pounds per acre irrigated. So out here, 8 or 10,000 pounds. And so it's a very reduced yield, but
Right.
then if the price for the crop is $2 a pound versus what is processing tomatoes getting, we'll have to look this up,
Yeah.
but 20 cents a pound, right?
I think it was somewhere in there.
We,
yeah.
So we're earning the same amount probably,
Right.
you know, it's
Right.
just way small,
Right.
you know, we're on different levels of the amount of quantity we're bringing out.
Right.
So that's the question is the yields are different, the way you're treating the land's different.
Right.
So I'm hoping out here, when we go to harvest, we don't ever bring equipment in or people in when it's wet.
Right.
Because it wasn't irrigated, so we're not adding compaction.
Right.
We're not producing a lot of weeds because they're not irrigating.
Right.
So we're building the soil, we're caring for the soil, we're keeping the weed seed bank down, and then every year cover cropping, I'm hoping we can build organic matter
Right.
year after year. And that's my hope as a farmer, that we hand over these fields to the next generation saying, okay, we've done our best with these fields. We
Yeah.
improved the health of every one of these fields. Whatever you want to grow here, you know,
Yeah.
we wish the best for it.
Keep it as good or pay it forward and make it better.
That's my
Right.
hope.
Yeah, and dry farming is in California has become something I'm really interested in. I've interacted with some dry farming viticulturalists as well.
That's cool.
And a lot of the base practices are pretty similar to what you're describing. So really it's that cover crop during the wet season, so you get good
Yeah.
infiltration, those roots open up the soil and water can penetrate,
Yeah.
plus you get the carbon. Then there's okay, I think it's done raining. Now I'm going to terminate the cover crop, which organically means mowing it usually. And then there's some incorporation in building that dust mulch you talked about, which is so critical to the whole system because it's that dry layer on the top of the soil that breaks the capillary action, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. So you can think of, for folks who don't really understand what we're talking about here, it's basically, it's like you have a parfait, to put it in food terms, and you got the peanuts would be the dry soil that keeps the chocolate from seeping through.
Coming through
so to
from
speak.
the
Right.
sun hitting the
from the
thing
sun
and
hitting it,
evaporating.
warming it up, and so you got the peanuts that are sort of insulating maybe the chocolate ice cream if it's a peanut buster parfait. Was that one of them?
Those
yeah.
are good.
So yeah, they're
Well, so
not
it's
organic. but
it's a
they're
true ecological crop.
Yeah.
It's a great ecological crop, and it makes sense where you don't have a ton of irrigation, where you want to tend for the soils and really care for the soils, and then where you can get a premium for the crop to make it worthwhile to do.
good. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I'd love to see other stuff. As an inspector at CCOF, I would visit places all over the state, and I saw dry farmed walnuts. And so the producers I talked to there are saying, okay, look, there's no money with these walnuts. We can't do anything. And if we do nothing, then we'll just get enough to keep going.
Right. So we got to keep the input cost down
Costs have
to
to be
nothing.
almost at zero.
Yeah.
I go, okay, wow.
So were they using a dust mulch in the walnuts?
No, they didn't even want to till the field. They did
Oh,
something
wow.
to control the weeds after rain. So
Okay.
maybe they dissed it, and
Yeah.
that disking it broke
Yeah.
stopped the evaporation of water.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you go to other parts of the country, this style of farming won't work because you get rain.
Exactly.
So
yes.
so in New York
Yes.
or Michigan or down in North Carolina or somewhere like that, it rains all summer.
It's raining on the East Coast all summer long.
Yeah, and which means you're always weeding.
Oh yeah.
But in California, we are we are blessed / cursed with this Mediterranean climate that
Right.
gives us that nice long dry period, which allows these really fun techniques.
And well, that's what's happening to us now is the stress of getting rained on in the middle of summer.
Right.
Our climate chaos conditions.
Yep.
The 2 years ago, we had the tropical storm
That's
come
right.
up, right? It rained all the way, it rained on this field
Oh my gosh.
in the middle of August, but it was just enough to have the crop not be ruined. So if this gets half an inch or inch of rain,
Yeah.
the crop will be ruined. So it will lose all flavor immediately,
Right.
and all the fruit will just burst open
It'll
because
split.
it's just split. It just
Right.
got so much water that it had none its whole life.
Yeah.
It'll just immediately split. And so whenever I see potential rain like a tropical system,
Yeah.
I'm wringing my hands. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want it to rain in the whole summer.
A lot of ponchos, rain ponchos for
Over the
each
whole
way.
thing.
Yeah, right.
Well,
That sounds really ecological.
Yeah, high tunnels. That'd be interesting.
But yeah, dry
Yeah.
farm high tunnels. I guess in the
Yeah.
Northeast, if you're going to dry farm, you'd kind of have to do that.
You'd have to block the irrigation.
Yeah.
You'd have to rainwater. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. I don't know. That's an
Yeah.
interesting.
So you mentioned that some local growers that really spearheaded this style of growing for tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? So I know with dryland grapes and viticulture,
Yeah.
it's a traditional practice going back thousands of years into. We usually credit southern Spain, southern Italy.
Yeah.
There's probably some evidence that in Persia they were dry farming grapes
That's
too.
cool.
With the tomatoes, do you know? I mean, was it truly a Central Coast like Santa Cruz innovation, or is there a European or Northern African
Yeah.
or?
I don't know the details. This is what I've heard. This is, we need to dive
that's
into
fine,
this.
that's fine.
What I've heard is that Molino, they learned the techniques from an Italian grower who either was
okay.
associated with the ranch, they were buying it from him, something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, these little coastal valleys in the old country, what we do is dry farm tomatoes to get a good flavor.
Wow.
And then they started doing that in 1971, and they figured out varieties that work best too. So when we mainly use early girl types, so a really productive tomato under a dry farm system is kind of productive in the end, right? So it produces less than it would irrigated, but it still produces enough to make sense as a crop.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So that's what I've heard, and now we want to travel back there, search around,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
see what
absolutely.
varieties are out that other people are using.
Which is amazing too, because of course, whereas grapes are definitely an old world crop,
Yeah.
well, at least wine grapes.
Yeah.
Tomatoes are most definitely a new world crop.
Yeah, that went to Europe and
Right.
got work done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then came back, right? It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So but I'm not surprised to hear that there was an Italian involvement in that, because I know in San Luis Obispo County, the dry farm grapes we have, it's all Italian immigrants that brought
really?
that technique with them. So I wonder if there's some cross-pollination between grapes and tomato growers in
Yeah.
that region, or
Yes.
maybe it was just happenstance, and it's a good idea that
Yeah.
lots of people think of.
And something about the climate, right? Mediterranean climate. It rained a certain amount in the winter. Doesn't rain all summer.
Right.
So you get all the benefits of the roots going down deep. The plant is stressed enough to produce flavor and hopefully nutrition. And then if the flavor is good enough, then you've got demand, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or in the case of probably maybe the old time condition, if you just can't irrigate, then this is how you grow your tomatoes.
So actually interesting question about irrigation and this crop. So I can draw from the creek nearby. We have water rights for the Waddell Creek. So I could grow an irrigated crop here
Right.
and maybe yield more. And like we were saying,
Right.
doing the math on it, an irrigated tomato crop out here that probably doesn't really get enough sun, so it wouldn't actually have that great a flavor. And so I am curious about where dry farming can make inroads in the state and where it can be useful. The western San Joaquin Valley, right? They followed 500,000 acres of cropland because there isn't water.
Right.
And so that we probably couldn't dry farm there, but could we figure out a crop that made sense, and could we do more dry farming on the coast and they get water? So I think we're facing the climate chaos that we're heading into, can we juggle crops and water to make sense to keep producing food?
Yeah, what you laid out right there is exactly why I'm so fascinated with dry farming in a Mediterranean climate, because we don't have the predictability of water that we once did.
Yeah.
And You know, thankfully, I mean, this year we had a really dry January. Thankfully, we got
Yeah.
some rain here in February, or have been getting rain.
Yeah. So here we got about 3 inches over the
I
last
was going to
week.
ask you that actually, because we got about, the last I looked was about 2 and 10, 2 and a tenth in San Luis Obispo in the town.
So you do need water for your dry farming. That's what I was
Right.
going to specify. There's numbers all over on
Right.
the amount you need, but you need from 10 to 20 inches of rain to fall on the ground.
Right.
If it's true drought conditions, you won't have the water in the soil to even do it. So that's
Right.
kind of the limiting factor is it does need to keep raining.
Right. And because literally in a dry farm situation, your soil is your reservoir.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the sponge that's holding all the water
Yeah.
to grow your crop
And
throughout that entire season.
Yeah, and then the high organic matter that you built up in there is
Right.
both holding that water and giving you nitrogen for the crop itself.
Right.
So then you're incentivized to build the
Yeah.
soil with the highest organic matter you can.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good subject change. What are you doing for your organic fertility out here?
Well, we haven't added any additional fertility. So each year, growing a cover crop and then mowing that, incorporating it into the soil. 2 weeks later, it breaks down and we plant right into that.
Okay.
We haven't added any fertilizer at all.
Right.
I want to add compost in the future just to keep
Right.
building the organic matter, but all the research I'm looking at is the higher the organic matter you get, and usually through cover crops, that is what provides all the nitrogen for your crop.
Ah, yeah. So what are you doing for your cover crop mix? So I'm looking at this field here, and it's a mix. It's a really lovely mix of plants.
Yes. So we're looking at, let's see, a mix of bell beans, veg, oats, peas.
Yeah.
So nitrogen fixing legumes. Oats are really good at breaking up the soil. They're kind of a hassle when you go to mow it and incorporate it because clumps of grass, and it takes a while to break down. But it seems smart to include because it has so many fibrous roots.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to me. I mean, the more I've talked about cover crops with growers in California, the mix approach seems to be where most folks are gravitating to. And typically,
and the more.
Yeah, there's a legume and some kind of grass, and the thought is that, like for a clover, for example, some grasses are a pretty good nurse crop to kind of give some structure for the clover to grow because it's just a little more delicate.
Yeah.
But you get that mix of benefits, and then I really think you also have, it's like an insurance policy, right? Because it's like if any one of you have multiple legumes, you've got multiple carbon sources in there. If any one of them doesn't do well, there's another one that can fill in the blanks, right?
Well, then they're saying you should have a bunch of cover crops, so a bunch of species. This has 4 or 5. People say 10 or 12 or 15, right? And I haven't gotten to that point, but it makes sense because each of those plants, they're interacting with soil microbes in different ways. They're feeding different stuff. They're pulling different stuff out of soil that you later incorporate. They're doing. So I want to dive into that more.
Yeah, it's amazing how little we know.
Yes.
And then how common a lot of these practices were 100 years ago,
Right.
when we didn't have synthetic inputs.
Yes. I was telling my son this too the other day. I think most people imagine that for farming, you just go out and you put something in the ground and it comes up in fruits.
Right.
Instead, there's a huge body of
That's not how it
knowledge.
works for you?
Okay,
That's how it's always worked for me.
There's a huge body of knowledge to make that possible.
Yeah.
And I think valuing that body of knowledge is important.
Right.
That's an example. When I was doing inspections, I went out to this guy's field. It was fall. He's planting broccoli. He's going to grow over winter, head up in spring, and he's making these really high beds. I go, why are you making those beds so high? It seems like extra work for you. And he said, okay, the 2 years previous, I didn't make them that high, or in previous years, because he had success before. He said, I didn't make the bed so high. When I didn't, and it rained a lot, the roots rotted in the soil, and the whole crop tanked. So a couple acres of broccoli, right?
Oh, wow.
And the difference between it succeeding and not succeeding is big, because all the inputs, effort, everything for it to fail is it's a huge effort. And he said, if I made the bed's really high, then I get better drainage and I pull off the crop. And that knowledge of that is so critical that this person gained from years of experience that
Right.
meant we got to eat broccoli.
Right.
Yeah, and I think valuing that is really important.
Yeah, and then if I'm guessing they probably had a slightly heavier soil.
Yeah,
if they're
heavy
having
soil.
drainage issues.
Yes, exactly.
Probably a lot of clay.
Yeah,
which is
heavy
like
soil.
the Cal Poly soils.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Oh God,
It is.
it's so bad out there. I mean, if you like clay, it's great.
Holds water.
It holds water like you wouldn't believe, like so much that there's sometimes 2 weeks you can't go out there. Yeah, because it's a swamp. Thankfully, no alligators. But to add to that, like if you think about it, like you could go not even half a county away, and suddenly you're on a sandy soil, and that tall hilling would just be extra work.
And you'd be losing water because water would be draining.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that knowledge piece is so amazing, and that's I think as we move, well, in organics we've always had to be more knowledge intensive. I think, or specific knowledge specific to the ground you're growing on. That's maybe a better way to couch that.
Yes.
But as if we continue to move into more biology and farming and backing off on the chemistry a little bit, I think that's just going to be everywhere.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. What innovations can we make about soil microbes and plant interactions, soil food web stuff that we can figure out that makes sense to get creative with crops and keep growing in challenging conditions.
Yeah. Let's see here. So what, we've talked a little bit about some of the opportunities and challenges that you've faced growing this way and in this piece of ground. Are there additional thoughts you have on that in terms of, like, what do you find?
Yeah.
Or what are challenges that you're still looking for solutions for, perhaps, other than, market
Right, yes.
and cheaper inputs?
Well, we're a small farm, so a little micro operation out here. But then 70% of the food in the world is brought to us from small farms. So they're important and critical to keep functioning. And I think just, running into being small scale, so a lot of the stuff that might benefit a big grower, I couldn't take advantage of. I'm not growing at scale, so everything I'm doing has to be really efficient because I'm competing with someone who might have thousands of acres.
Right.
Even though I have the same crop as them, probably not so much dry farm, but I have a tomato in tomato season, and that makes it so it's hard to compete in a world with bigger growers.
Right.
And then just the cost of the crop, and I think this is like I'm gonna look in the camera and plead like farmers need more for their crops. Okay. And so I don't know, do we form consumer groups and pressure the grocery stores to say, okay, you raise the price this much on us, so all right, let's look at the total. Okay, give 15% to the farmer, 20% to the farmer, make it so they can keep producing enough food for us to eat food. Yeah.
Or, I mean, I guess the other solution is a governmental subsidy route or something like that.
Yeah, and people have talked about that too.
Yeah, and in specialty crops, just to be clear, we get barely any support from the federal government. I mean, the commodity crops and animal agriculture areas are really that those systems were built up around. Yeah. And they make up by far the bulk of farmland in the country.
Good comment. Yes.
But yeah, it would be nice just to provide some stability to growers, because again, if you don't get that 10 to 18 inches of rain, then you don't have a crop that year.
And then how can we get creative
to make it? You still got rent.
Exactly. How can we how can we get creative so that farmers have success? That's what I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know about we could plan the whole economy. It's probably not likely, but what can we do to ensure that people are getting paid a fair price for what they're growing, and then there's systems to keep supporting the smallest farmers in our region. Yeah.
Well, the farm to school programs, I think, have been a pretty I've seen that in a couple counties, and that seems to be a pretty powerful mechanism to provide sort of a larger wholesale market with attractive pricing. And I was really excited to hear that you're marketing to local schools, because man, what a treat for the kids to get to experience that.
Yes,
I mean,
and how fun is that? We had a field trip at my son's school out
awesome.
here, and so we set up targets. They threw tomatoes at the targets. We made a pizza oven was like cranking. You know, it got up to 1,000 degrees. I had everyone, back away. Yeah. But that was really fun. They're rolling out their own pizza, so crazy pieces were coming out. Right?
Oh, that's so awesome!
It was so fun. So that was my highlight of the year.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, how can we do more of that? I want to feed kids. That's
Yeah.
a great use of this produce.
Oh, well, and none of them will ever forget that day they had on the
Yeah.
dryland tomato
You're
farm.
right.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, what an awesome
It was fun. That was
piece
fun.
of knowledge to impart on them and a experience.
And they got to know, this is Davenport Pacific Elementary. It's right down the road. They got to know a local farm.
Oh,
They got to have
so
fun.
excellent.
Yeah. They took home tomatoes.
yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So, what do you have any sort of other thoughts you'd like to share or ideas?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm in a unique situation because I'm working a job 9 to 5 during the week and then juggling this. So I'm kind of curious to hear from others or hear what people are doing in that realm. So how people are getting creative financially. How are they selling direct to others? I'm curious to learn more about that and figure out how can we just avoid the grocery store and go straight to the person, if that's one way to do it. And then I'm just more interested in agriculture and how in California we keep producing. I don't know what percent of the produce is coming out of here, 40%, 30% of the fresh produce?
It's at least 40. Well, if you get into veggies and stuff, I think it's upwards of 40. It might be 60.
Right.
Maybe you have to include Yuma, Arizona, in that to
Yeah,
get there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, that's right over the border.
Yeah.
No, it's a huge amount, and especially in certain crops like tomatoes. I mean, really, there are some processing tomatoes and fresh tomatoes grown all through the country, but nothing compared to what's grown here. I guess Florida's got a big industry for fresh tomatoes.
Yeah.
But like processing tomatoes were it.
Right. So I'm curious how we can keep
Yeah.
bolstering the farm community of the state and then make sense to keep growing and feed the country.
With unpredictable water.
Yeah.
And everybody's I mean, anyone who's ever worked on water policy knows how friendly people are in those conversations.
Good call.
It brings out the best in people.
Santa Cruz is showing Chinatown tonight. In
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great
about
movie.
California water.
Yeah.
So excited to go watch it tonight.
Oh, that's awesome. Is it the Nickelodeon or
No, it's Santa Cruz Cinema.
Santa Cruz Cinema?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
So I'll look for you there
Yeah.
as we figure out how to keep these crops going.
That's great. Well, Brian, thank you so much for letting us come onto your farm and talk with you about what you're doing out here. It's a real pleasure and a privilege, and look forward to chatting with you again, either in a farming capacity or organic certification capacity.
Thanks, well, I appreciate all your efforts and what you're doing.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Thanks for being in touch and all your great work.
Program funding for the Organic Odyssey was provided by the California Certified Organic Farmers Foundation, as well as the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. The show was created by Matt Grisham, the talent coordinator and resident organic expert, as well as Moses Mike, the faculty production lead. The Organic Odyssey is a production of the AGC 225 class called Digital Communications and Agriculture. The student team that produced the show included Natalie Eubanks and Savannah Taylor, the directors, hosts Madison Jasso and Ava Rose, storyboard editing by Avery Mulerath, and the technical team, Isabella Anderson, Vincent Biller, Vivian Kempora, Kendall Cook, Callie Granis, Carolyn Janes, Zach Collar, Emmy Lynn Marrow, Jack Oliver Roa, Sarah Purcell, Mason Riley, and Holly Rudnick. The guests in this episode included Brian Coltrin and Matt Grisham. The Organic Odyssey is a digital media collaboration between the Agricultural Education and Communications Department and the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. These credits were read by Chelsea Ann. Thanks for listening.